Ma'am, I'm going to need to see your board credentials. Here they are. And you're fired. 24 hours earlier, none of them saw it coming. Not Isabella Whitmore, the VIP lounge manager who believed luxury was about keeping the wrong people out. Not the witnesses who would accidentally become warriors for justice. And certainly not the woman in leggings who would bring down an empire with nothing but dignity and a badge. This is the true story of how one moment of judgment grounded more than just a flight. It changed everything. Maya Rodriguez pressed her temple against the cool airplane window as Flight 847 began its descent into Miami. 34 years old, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had learned that real power whispered rather than shouted. Her Afro-Latina heritage had given her high cheekbones and warm brown skin that glowed even under the harsh cabin lighting. But right now, exhaustion dulled her usually bright eyes. The past 72 hours had been a whirlwind of boardrooms in Hong Kong, handshakes worth billions, and contracts that would reshape the aviation industry. Hidden in her weathered leather portfolio were documents that represented a $2.8 billion acquisition deal. 3 airlines merging under Sky Premium's umbrella, creating the largest carrier in the Western Hemisphere. And Maya Rodriguez, unknown to the public, held the deciding vote. 6 months ago, when her mentor, Dr. Catherine Williams, passed away from cancer, Maya had inherited something more valuable than money. She inherited Catherine's board seat at Sky Premium Airlines. Dr. Williams had been the first black woman on the board fighting lonely battles for equity in an industry that moved the world but struggled to move beyond its prejudices. "You're not ready yet," Dr. Williams had whispered during their final conversation. "But when the moment comes, you'll know. And Maya, remember this, they'll underestimate you. Let them. It makes the victory sweeter." Maya shifted in her first-class seat, pulling her oversized cashmere sweater tighter around her shoulders. She'd changed out of her business attire hours ago, trading her power suit for comfort. Designer leggings, a soft gray sweater that had seen better days, and her favorite white sneakers. She looked like any other exhausted traveler, not like someone who controlled the fate of an airline empire. The irony wasn't lost on her. In a few hours, she'd be sitting in a conference room where executives would hang on her every word. But right now, slumped in seat 1A with her hair in a messy bun and mascara slightly smudged from the long journey, she was invisible. That was about to change. As the plane touched down at Miami International Airport, Maya felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. The merger documents needed final review before tomorrow's board meeting. She had 3 hours in the Sky Premium VIP lounge to prepare for the biggest decision of her career. She gathered her things slowly, her movements deliberate despite her exhaustion. The leather portfolio felt heavier than usual, pregnant with the power to change lives. Inside weren't just contracts and financial projections. There were employment guarantees for 50,000 workers, new routes that would connect underserved communities, and a commitment to diversity initiatives that Dr. Williams had dreamed of, but never lived to see implemented. The airplane aisle was crowded with passengers eager to begin their Miami weekend, but Maya waited. She'd learned patience from watching Dr. Williams navigate corporate waters filled with sharks. Never let them see you rush, Catherine had taught her. Desperation makes you vulnerable. When the crowd thinned, Maya rose gracefully and made her way through the jet bridge. Terminal 3 buzzed with the controlled chaos of international arrivals. Families reunited with squeals and tears. Business travelers rushed toward their next connection, and tourists clutched guidebooks with dreams of South Beach adventures. Maya moved through it all like a ghost, unnoticed and unbothered. Her mind was already in the lounge, already preparing for tomorrow's board meeting. The acquisition would pass, she was certain of that. The numbers were too compelling, the strategic advantages too obvious. But Maya had additional conditions written into the merger agreement. Conditions that would require accountability, transparency, and, most importantly, respect for every passenger, regardless of how they looked or where they came from. She passed a group of teenagers taking selfies, their laughter echoing off the terminal's high ceilings. One of them, a young woman with bright pink hair and multiple facial piercings, caught Maya's eye and smiled. Maya smiled back, remembering when she was that age, invisible in a different way. Back then, she was invisible because she was young and broke. Now she was invisible because people couldn't reconcile her appearance with her authority. Both versions of invisibility had taught her something valuable. People revealed their true character when they thought no one important was watching. As Maya approached the Sky Premium VIP lounge, she felt that familiar tingle of anticipation. The lounge represented everything she was working to change. Exclusive, expensive, and unwelcoming to anyone who didn't fit their narrow definition of premium. But it was also where she needed to work, where she could spread out documents and prepare without interruption. The entrance gleamed with polished marble and brushed steel, the Sky Premium logo backlit in elegant blue. Through the glass doors, she could see leather chairs, a full bar, and travelers who looked like they belonged in magazine spreads. Men in $1,000 suits checking stock portfolios on iPads. Women with designer handbags and jewelry that caught the light like small suns. And standing behind the welcome desk like a guardian of luxury was Isabella Whitmore. Maya had never met Isabella, but she knew the type. 45 years old and flawlessly maintained, Isabella wore her blonde hair in a perfect chignon that probably took an hour to achieve. Her makeup was applied with the precision of a professional artist, and her navy blue suit was tailored so precisely it might have been painted on her curves. She was beautiful in the way that required significant time, money, and effort to maintain. But it was Isabella's posture that told the real story. Shoulders back, chin lifted slightly, eyes that assessed and categorized every person who approached her domain. She was the gatekeeper, and she wore that role like armor. Maya paused just outside the entrance, watching Isabella interact with other passengers. A middle-aged white man in a rumpled suit approached, and Isabella's smile was immediate and warm. She checked his credentials with a perfunctory glance and waved him through with a "Welcome back, Mr. Patterson." Next came an elderly woman with a Louis Vuitton handbag and Chanel suit. Isabella practically glowed as she processed the woman's entry. "Mrs. Richardson, how lovely to see you again. Your usual table by the window is available." Maya observed the pattern. Quick processing for those who looked the part. Warm greetings for repeat customers who fit the profile. And subtle but unmistakable signals that this space was for a particular type of person. She checked her phone one last time, seeing a text from Elena Martinez, her assistant and closest confidant. Board meeting confirmed for 10 a.m. tomorrow. Documents ready for final review. Break a leg, boss. Maya smiled at the screen. Elena was one of the few people who knew about Maya's board position, and she'd been invaluable in keeping Maya's corporate life separate from her public persona. Tomorrow, when Maya walked into that boardroom, she'd be wearing a $3,000 suit and carrying herself with visible authority. But today, she was just another tired traveler seeking comfort. She straightened her shoulders, adjusted her grip on the portfolio, and walked toward the entrance. It was time to see how the other half lived, and more importantly, time to see how they treated people who didn't look like them. The automatic glass doors slid open with a whisper, and Maya stepped into a world that hadn't yet learned who she really was. Maya approached the welcome desk with the casual confidence of someone who belonged everywhere she chose to be. Isabella looked up from her computer screen, and Maya watched the micro-expressions play across her face. First confusion, then assessment, then a carefully neutral mask that didn't quite hide the judgment underneath. "Good evening," Maya said, her voice pleasant but not deferential. She reached into her wallet and produced her Platinum Executive Membership card, placing it on the polished marble counter between them. Isabella picked up the card with 2 fingers, as if it might be contaminated. She scanned it with her reader, and Maya watched the screen reflect against Isabella's face. The card was legitimate, paid in full with access privileges that most travelers could only dream of. But Isabella didn't see the card details. She saw Maya's leggings, her comfortable sneakers, the worn leather portfolio that looked like it had survived a war. She saw everything except what mattered. Isabella said a small sound that managed to contain volumes of disapproval. This doesn't look right. Maya's eyebrows rose slightly. I'm sorry, your membership status? Isabella clarified, though her tone suggested anything but clarification. It shows Platinum Executive, but... She gestured vaguely at Maya's appearance. But Maya's voice remained level, but there was steel underneath the silk. Isabella's smile was the kind that never reached the eyes. Well, honey, sometimes there are glitches in the system. Computer errors. Maybe an upgrade that wasn't properly processed. I'd hate for you to be embarrassed when we discover there's been a mistake. Behind Isabella, Carlos. Mendez looked up from organizing champagne flutes. He was 28, with the eager-to-please demeanor of someone new to the hospitality industry, but old enough to recognize bullshit when he heard it. He'd processed Maya's card himself earlier and knew it was legitimate. Every privilege, every access level, every payment was current and verified. Ma'am, Carlos said softly, stepping closer to Isabella. The card scanned correctly. All privileges are active. Isabella shot him a look that could have frozen champagne. Carlos, I think I know how to read a membership profile. But Maya caught Carlos's eye and saw something there. Recognition. Validation. Someone who understood that what was happening wasn't about cards or computers or glitches. It was about something much older and uglier. Perhaps, Maya said, her tone remaining conversational. You could explain what specific issue you're seeing with my membership. Isabella's perfectly manicured fingers drummed against the counter. Our clientele in the executive lounge expects a certain standard, a certain atmosphere. I'm sure you understand. No, Maya replied. I don't understand. Could you be more specific? The lounge buzzed with quiet conversation and the clink of crystal glasses, but Maya was aware that their interaction had begun to draw attention. A woman in the corner booth looked up from her laptop, frowning. A businessman at the bar turned slightly, his phone now pointed in their direction, though he pretended to be checking messages. Isabella's mask slipped another degree. Look, I'm trying to be nice here. Maybe there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe someone else's account got mixed up with yours. These things happen. There's a regular Sky Premium Lounge on Concourse B that might be more appropriate. More appropriate for what Maya asked. Isabella's silence was answer enough. At a table near the window, Sophie Chen looked up from editing her latest TikTok video. 25 years old, with an aesthetic that screamed luxury travel influencer, Sophie had built a following of 2.1 million by showcasing the most exclusive experiences money could buy. She wore designer athleisure that probably cost more than most people's rent, and her camera was never far from reach. Something in the tension at the welcome desk caught her attention. Sophie had an instinct for drama, and her instincts were usually profitable. Marcus Thompson sat at the bar nursing a scotch and periodically checking his phone. At 42, he'd learned that being a black businessman meant always having your guard up, always being ready to prove you belonged in spaces that questioned your presence. He'd seen this dance before, and he quietly activated his phone's camera, pointing it toward the welcome desk, while appearing to scroll through emails. Near the magazine rack, Diego Vasquez looked up from the aviation weekly he'd been pretending to read. 22 and idealistic Diego was flying home to Boston after a spring break that had turned into a civil rights pilgrimage through the South. He'd spent the week visiting historical sites, talking to activists, and learning about the long struggle for equality. His eyes were trained to spot injustice, and alarm bells were ringing in his head. Isabella leaned forward, slightly lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Between you and me, some of our premium members have complained about the changing demographics in our executive spaces. We need to be mindful of the experience we're providing to our most valued customers. Maya's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. She stood a little straighter, her grip on the portfolio tightening slightly. And what demographics are those people who dress appropriately? Isabella said quickly. People who understand the ambiance we're trying to maintain. I see. Maya's voice was so calm it was almost hypnotic. And you've determined that I don't understand this ambiance. I'm just trying to prevent any awkwardness, Isabella insisted. For everyone involved. Sophie had started recording, though she kept her phone low and discreet. Her followers loved luxury content, but they also loved drama, and this was developing into both. She whispered into her phone. Guys, something's happening at the Sky Premium Lounge. This is getting weird. Carlos approached the counter again, his internal conflict written across his young face. He'd taken this job because he believed in hospitality and making people feel welcome and valued. Watching Isabella twist herself into knots to exclude someone whose membership was more legitimate than half the people in the lounge made his stomach turn. Ms. Whitmore, he said quietly. All of her credentials check out. Everything's valid. Isabella's head snapped toward him. Carlos, I don't need you to tell me how to do my job. I'm not, Carlos, replied his voice gaining strength. I'm telling you how to do what's right. The words hung in the air between them. Maya looked at Carlos with something approaching respect, while Isabella's face flushed pink beneath her foundation. That's quite enough, Isabella said sharply. Carlos, return to your duties. And as for you, she turned back to Maya. I'm going to need additional verification before I can grant access. What additional verification? Maya asked. Secondary identification, credit card verification, confirmation of recent travel history. Isabella was making it up as she went along, creating hoops that existed nowhere in company policy. Diego had moved closer, his phone now openly recording. Excuse me, he said to Carlos. Is it normal for the lounge to require additional verification for valid members? Carlos shook his head. No, sir. A valid membership card should be sufficient. Interesting, Diego murmured loud enough for his phone's microphone to pick up. Isabella whirled toward Diego. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to put that phone away. We have privacy policies in this lounge. Privacy policies that only apply when someone's being discriminated against, Diego asked. Marcus had moved closer, too, his phone still recording from the bar. He'd seen this exact scenario play out in corporate boardrooms, hotel lobbies, and exclusive restaurants. The script was always the same move. The goalposts question the credentials, make the person prove they belonged in a way that white customers never had to prove. Ma'am Marcus called out to Maya. I recorded this whole conversation. If you need a witness, I'm happy to provide one. Sophie's eyes lit up. This was content gold. OMG, you guys, this is insane. They're literally trying to keep this woman out for no reason. Her whispered commentary was already being heard by the 50,000 followers who joined her live stream. Isabella looked around the lounge, realizing that she'd lost control of the situation. What had started as a simple case of keeping out the wrong element had somehow turned into a public spectacle. But rather than backing down, she doubled down. I decide who gets access to this lounge, Isabella announced, her voice carrying across the space. And I've decided that there are irregularities with this membership that need to be resolved before access can be granted. Maya set her portfolio down on the counter with deliberate care. When she looked up, her eyes held a clarity that made several nearby passengers pause their conversations. Let me make sure I understand, Maya said, her voice carrying clearly through the suddenly quiet space. You're denying me access to a lounge where I have valid paid membership because you've decided my appearance doesn't meet your personal standards. I'm following established protocols, Isabella replied, but her voice lacked conviction. Which protocols? Maya pressed. I'd like to see them in writing. Isabella's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. There were no protocols. There was only bias dressed up in corporate language and personal preferences masquerading as policy. Maya pulled out her phone. I think it's time I made a call. Isabella's eyes narrowed. Call whoever you want. Some lawyer isn't going to intimidate me. Maya's finger hovered over a contact labeled simply Elena. We'll see about that. Maya tapped Elena's number and raised the phone to her ear. Around her, the lounge had fallen into the kind of silence that precedes either violence or revelation. Isabella stood with her arms crossed, confident in her authority, while Carlos looked like he wanted to sink through the marble floor. Elena, it's Maya. We have a situation. 50 miles away in a glass tower overlooking Biscayne Bay. Elena Martinez looked up from her laptop where she'd been reviewing merger documents. Elena had been Maya's assistant for 3 years, but she was much more than that. She was Maya's shield, her sword, and her most trusted ally in a corporate world that still struggled to see women of color as anything but tokens. Board emergency protocol, Elena asked, her fingers already moving toward her keyboard. Yes. Full documentation, immediate response. Recording and archiving everything now. Legal standing by. How do you want to play this? Maya glanced around the lounge, noting the phones now openly pointed in her direction, the passengers leaning forward to catch every word. By the book. Let them hang themselves with their own policies. Understood. Maya. Make them regret ever questioning you. As Maya ended the call, Sophie's live stream had exploded to 75,000 viewers. Comments flew past faster than she could read them. This is insane. Sue them all. Boycott Sky Premium. Get her name. This woman is my hero. Okay, guys, Sophie whispered into her phone. This lady just made some kind of official call. The manager looks scared, but she's trying to hide it. This is about to get crazy. Diego had moved to a better vantage point, his phone capturing both Maya's dignified stance and Isabella's increasing agitation. His Instagram story was already being shared across social justice networks with hashtag #SkyPremiumShame beginning to trend in real time. Marcus had opened his laptop and was live tweeting the encounter, watching discrimination happen in real time at @SkyPremiumVivIP Lounge. Woman with valid membership being denied access. This is 2024 people. Do better. His followers, a mix of business professionals and social justice advocates, were already retweeting with their own commentary. The ripple effect had begun. At Sky Premium's corporate headquarters, Elena's fingers flew across her keyboard. Within minutes, she'd accessed the lounge's security camera feeds, archived the past hour of footage, and sent alerts to the crisis management team. Maya's identity remained secret, known only to a handful of board members and senior executives, but Elena knew that secret was Maya's most powerful weapon. Let them underestimate her. Let them think she was just another angry customer with a lawyer on speed dial. The reveal would be so much sweeter. Isabella checked her phone and saw 17 missed calls from her regional manager. Something was happening, but she couldn't figure out what. One woman, one membership dispute. How had it escalated so quickly, ma'am? She said to Maya, trying to regain control. If you'll just provide the additional verification I requested, we can resolve this quickly. Maya looked at her with something approaching pity. Isabella. I'm going to ask you one more time. What specific policy requires additional verification for a valid Platinum Executive member? Isabella's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Around them, the documentation continued. Phones recorded every stumble, every contradiction, every moment of her professional destruction. Carlos stepped forward, his young face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "There is no such policy," he said loudly enough for every phone to capture. "I've worked here for 8 months, and we've never required additional verification for valid members." Isabella whirled on him. "Carlos, you're out of line." "No," Carlos replied, his voice growing stronger. "You are. And I'm not going to stand here and watch you discriminate against someone because you don't like how they're dressed." Sophie's live stream erupted with fire emojis and applause symbols. "Y'all, this kid just spoke truth to power. The employee is standing up for what's right." The young man's moral courage resonated across social media. Clips of his declaration spread across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. "Carlos is a hero" began trending alongside Sky Premium Shame. At her desk, Elena monitored the social media explosion while coordinating with Sky Premium's executive team. The CEO's assistant had called twice. The head of customer relations was in full panic mode, and the stock was beginning to fluctuate as news of the incident spread. But Elena waited. Maya hadn't given the signal yet. Isabella's phone rang again. This time she answered, stepping away from the counter, but not far enough to escape the recording devices trained on her. Isabella Whitmore. "Yes, I understand there's concern." "No, sir, it's just a misunderstanding. A woman who doesn't meet our standards. I don't know how it got on social media." Maya listened to one side of the conversation with growing amusement. She could fill in the blanks. Some executive demanding to know why their airline was trending on Twitter for discrimination. Someone asking why their stock price was dropping. Someone wanting answers that Isabella couldn't provide because she didn't understand the magnitude of what she'd started. Diego had moved closer to Isabella, his phone capturing her increasingly frantic conversation. "She's talking to someone important," he narrated for his followers. "You can tell she's in trouble. Marcus live tweeted updates, manager now on phone with corporate. Damage control mode, but too late. This is everywhere. Sky Premium, shame." Sophie's follower count was climbing rapidly as her live stream was shared across platforms. 100,000 viewers, guys. This is the biggest stream I've ever done. And for such an important reason, the power dynamic in the lounge had completely reversed. Isabella, who'd begun the encounter as the gatekeeper with absolute authority, now looked small and desperate. Maya, who'd been dismissed as a problem to be solved, stood calm and composed while chaos swirled around her. When Isabella ended her call, her hands were shaking. "Security is on the way," she announced, trying to inject authority back into her voice. "If you don't leave voluntarily, they'll escort you out." Maya smiled. It was a gentle, almost sympathetic expression that somehow made her more intimidating than any angry outburst could have achieved. "Please do call security," Maya said. "I think everyone here would benefit from additional witnesses." Carlos looked between Maya and Isabella, his jaw tightening. "I'm calling my supervisor," he announced. "This has gone too far." "You do that?" Carlos, Isabella snapped. "Call whoever you want. I have authority here." As Carlos dialed, airport security appeared at the lounge entrance. 2 officers in uniform looking confused about why they'd been called to what appeared to be a customer service dispute. The lead officer, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an air of competence, surveyed the scene. Phones recording passengers clustered around a welcome desk, 2 women facing off with very different energy. "What seems to be the problem here?" Officer Rodriguez asked. Isabella pointed at Maya. "This woman is trespassing. She's been denied access to our lounge and refuses to leave." Officer Rodriguez looked at Maya. "Ma'am, do you have credentials for this lounge?" Maya handed over her membership card. Officer Rodriguez scanned it with a reader from her belt, and her eyebrows rose slightly. "This shows full access privileges," she said, looking confused. "That's impossible," Isabella insisted. "I already determined there were irregularities." Officer Rodriguez showed her the scanner display. "What irregularities?" "This is a valid platinum executive membership." The phones caught every word. Sophie's live stream exploded with shocked emojis and comments. The security just proved she's right. That manager is done. Justice incoming. Isabella stared at the scanner as if it had betrayed her. But she doesn't look like what Officer Rodriguez asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. Isabella had finally said what everyone knew she was thinking, and now she couldn't take it back. Maya stepped forward, her voice clear and calm. "Officer, I think it's time for that phone call I mentioned." She dialed a different number this time. One that would change everything. The phone rang twice before a crisp voice answered. Rodriguez speaking. "Miguel, it's Maya Rodriguez. I need you at Terminal 3 Sky Premium VIP Lounge immediately." Miguel Rodriguez, Regional Director for Sky Premium's Eastern Division and no relation to the security officer, nearly choked on his coffee. Maya Rodriguez didn't make casual calls. When she contacted him directly, it meant something significant was happening. Something that could affect stock prices, board meetings, or his career trajectory. "Maya, what's the situation? Discrimination incident. Full documentation in progress. I need crisis management here in 10 minutes. Miguel's blood pressure spiked. Maya was one of the most powerful people in the airline industry, and if she was personally involved in a discrimination incident, the fallout would be nuclear. "On my way." "Do you need legal?" "Already handled. Just get here." As Maya ended the call, Isabella tried to maintain her composure, despite the growing crowd and the phones that seemed to multiply every few minutes. More passengers had noticed the commotion and drifted over, some recording, others simply watching what appeared to be a masterclass in customer service failure. Sophie's live stream had reached 150,000 viewers. Her phone was overheating from the constant use, but she couldn't stop recording. This was the kind of content that defined careers, the moment when social media met social justice in real time. "Guys, she just called someone named Rodriguez Sophie," whispered to her audience. "Whoever this lady is, she has serious connections." The manager looks terrified. Diego had shifted positions to capture Isabella's reactions from multiple angles. His Instagram story had been picked up by major social justice accounts, with thousands of shares and comments flooding in. Sky Premium Shame was trending nationally with subsidiary hashtags like Maya Deserves Better and Carlos is a Hero gaining momentum. Marcus had opened a Twitter thread detailing every moment of the encounter. His business network was sharing it widely, with executives from competing airlines weighing in with carefully neutral statements about industry standards and customer service excellence. Carlos was on his phone with his supervisor describing the situation in increasingly urgent tones. "Yes, sir, I understand, but the member's credentials are valid." "No, sir." Ms. Whitmore insisted on additional verification. "Yes, sir, it's being recorded." The airport security officer looked between Maya and Isabella, trying to understand how a simple membership dispute had escalated into what looked like a corporate crisis. More passengers were arriving, drawn by the unusual activity in the normally sedate lounge. Isabella's phone buzzed with another call. This time, the caller ID made her knees weak. David Chen, Sky Premium's CEO. She'd never spoken to him directly, had only seen him in company videos and shareholder presentations. The fact that he was calling her personal phone meant the situation had escalated far beyond her control. "Mr. Chen," she answered, her voice trembling slightly. "Mrs. Whitmore, what exactly is happening at your location, sir?" "It's just a membership verification issue that's gotten blown out of proportion." Blown out of proportion. "Our stock has dropped 8% in the last 30 minutes. Our customer service lines are flooded with calls. And there's video of our staff discriminating against a passenger going viral across every social media platform. How is that a simple membership issue?" Isabella looked around desperately, as if the answer might materialize from the marble walls or crystal chandeliers. "Sir, the woman doesn't appear to meet our clientele standards." "Our clientele standards." Ms. Whitmore, our clientele standard is that passengers pay their fees and follow our policies. Has this woman done both of those things? Well, yes, but then why is she being denied service? The question echoed across the lounge. Isabella realized that everyone was listening to her side of the conversation, that her professional destruction was being documented in high definition for posterity. I thought, you thought wrong. Fix this. Now. The line went dead. Maya watched Isabella's face cycle through several expressions: confusion, fear, anger, and finally a kind of desperate determination. She was going to double down, Maya realized. Rather than admit error, Isabella was going to dig her grave deeper. Ma'am, Isabella said, turning back to Maya with forced authority. I apologize for the delay, but I still need to verify your identity before granting access. The phones captured every word. Sophie's audience exploded with angry emojis and disbelief. She's still doing it, Sophie whispered, even after that phone call. That's when the elevator doors opened, and Miguel Rodriguez stepped into the lounge. 45 years old, with the bearing of a man accustomed to solving problems before they became disasters. Miguel moved with urgent purpose. Behind him walked Jennifer Walsh, Sky Premium's Director of Customer Relations, her face pale with the knowledge that her afternoon had just become a career-defining moment. Isabella saw them approaching and felt a wave of relief. Finally, someone with real authority who could support her position and restore order. Mr. Rodriguez, she called out. Thank goodness you're here. We have a disruptive passenger who's causing a scene. Miguel surveyed the lounge, taking in the recording phones, the clustered passengers, and the woman at the center of it all. He'd known Maya for 2 years, had sat across from her in board meetings, had watched her ask the questions that other directors were afraid to voice. Maya Rodriguez stood with perfect posture, her expression serene despite the chaos surrounding her. She looked exactly like someone who belonged in the most exclusive spaces aviation had to offer. She also looked like someone who could destroy careers with a single phone call, because that's exactly what she was. Miguel approached the welcome desk and Isabella stepped toward him with visible relief. Mr. Rodriguez, I tried to handle this quietly, but this woman has been argumentative and disruptive. She's claiming discrimination when I was simply following our verification protocols. Miguel looked at Isabella for a long moment, then turned to Maya. Ms. Rodriguez, he said, his voice carrying clearly across the suddenly silent lounge, we apologize profusely for this incident. This should never have happened. The lounge fell into complete silence. Sophie's live stream erupted with confusion. Rodriguez. She has the same last name as the director. Wait, what's happening? Who is this woman? Isabella's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, and then a particular shade of pale that suggested her world was ending. Rodriguez, she repeated weakly. Maya reached into her portfolio and withdrew a slim leather wallet. From it, she extracted a badge that caught the light and seemed to illuminate the entire lounge. The badge was elegant in its simplicity: Sky Premium Airlines logo, Board of Directors, and beneath it, Maya Rodriguez. The silence that followed was absolute. Sophie stared at her phone screen as comments exploded faster than she could process. Board member, she's on the board, that manager is so fired. Oh my God! Oh my God! Diego's voice cracked as he narrated for his Instagram story. She's on the board of directors. They just tried to ban a board member from their own airline's lounge. Marcus's fingers flew across his keyboard. Breaking at Sky Premium VIP Lounge. Manager attempts to deny service to company board member. Stock continues falling. This is corporate suicide in real time. Maya held the badge for everyone to see, then looked directly at Isabella. Ms. Whitmore, I'm Maya Rodriguez, and I serve on the board of directors of Sky Premium Airlines. Her voice was clear and calm, carrying to every corner of the lounge and every phone microphone trained on her. Isabella swayed slightly, gripping the counter for support. I didn't. You weren't. How was I supposed to know Maya completed? You weren't supposed to know. You were supposed to treat every passenger with respect and dignity, regardless of how they looked or what you assumed about them. Carlos stepped forward, his young face flushed with vindication. Ms. Rodriguez, I tried to tell her your credentials were valid. Maya smiled at him, the first genuinely warm expression she'd shown since entering the lounge. Thank you, Carlos. Standing up for what's right takes courage. Jennifer Walsh approached her crisis management training, warring with the knowledge that this situation was already beyond salvage. Ms. Rodriguez, on behalf of Sky Premium Airlines, I offer our sincerest apologies. This incident does not represent our values or our training. Maya's gaze swept the lounge, taking in the recording passengers, the viral social media storm, and Isabella, who looked like she was about to collapse. Actually, Jennifer, I think this incident represents your values perfectly. The question is whether you're prepared to change them. The phones captured every word as Maya Rodriguez, board member and architect of change, prepared to reshape an airline's culture in real time. Sophie's live stream had reached 500,000 viewers when Maya made her announcement, and the explosion of engagement crashed TikTok's servers in 3 time zones. The comments section moved so fast, it looked like digital rain board member Justice. She played the long game, iconic queen behavior. Holy shit, you guys, Sophie whispered, forgetting her usual family-friendly content guidelines. This woman is literally on the board of the airline. They just tried to discriminate against their own boss. This is the wildest thing I've ever witnessed. Her follower count was climbing in real time. Every major news outlet's social media manager was frantically trying to contact her for licensing rights to the footage. CNN, NBC, Fox News, and BBC had all sent messages in the last 10 minutes. Diego's Instagram story had been shared by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, John Legend, and Kerry Washington. His phone couldn't handle the notification volume and had switched to silent mode to prevent overheating. Sky Premium Shame was trending worldwide with subsidiary hashtags exploding across platforms. Boardroom to lounge Maya Rodriguez, Justice Isabella is finished. Marcus's Twitter thread had been retweeted 50,000 times in 30 minutes. His notifications included responses from airline executives, civil rights lawyers, and business journalists. CNBC had already reached out for an interview. His documentation of the incident was being treated as the authoritative record of corporate discrimination in the digital age. At Sky Premium's headquarters, the crisis management team was in full meltdown mode. The stock price had dropped 12% and was still falling. Customer service lines were overwhelmed with calls ranging from outraged passengers to reporters seeking statements to competitors offering to honor Sky Premium tickets. Elena Martinez coordinated the response from her office, fielding calls from board members, executives, and media outlets while monitoring the social media firestorm. She'd worked in corporate crisis management for a decade, but she'd never seen anything spread this fast or cut this deep. CEO David Chen was in his office watching the live streams on multiple monitors while his communications team frantically crafted statements that would never be enough to contain the damage. Every few minutes, another board member called demanding answers. Stock analysts were upgrading their sell recommendations to urgent. Competitor airlines were issuing carefully worded statements about their commitment to inclusive service. Sir, his assistant informed him through the intercom, Bloomberg wants a live interview in 20 minutes. CNN is setting up in the lobby, and Maya Rodriguez's office has requested an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. David closed his eyes and wondered how his day had gone from quarterly projections to corporate catastrophe in less than an hour. Back in the lounge, Maya addressed the gathered crowd, and the phones still trained on her. What you witnessed today happens to travelers across the country every single day. The only difference is that this time it was documented, and this time the person it happened to had the power to ensure consequences. Isabella stood frozen behind the welcome desk, her career evaporating in real time. Miguel Rodriguez had stepped away to coordinate with corporate, leaving her alone to face the aftermath of her choices. "I want everyone here to understand," Maya continued, her voice carrying clearly across the space and through every live stream, "that discrimination doesn't disappear when you reach a certain income level or achieve a certain position. It just becomes more subtle, more polite, more devastating. Ms. Whitmore didn't create this problem. She's a symptom of a much larger disease." Carlos stepped forward, his young idealism tempered by what he'd witnessed. "Ms. Rodriguez, what happens now? To the company, I mean." Maya looked at him with approval. "Now we fix it. Starting tomorrow, Sky Premium will implement new policies, new training, and new accountability measures. Zero tolerance for discrimination, full documentation of complaints, and most importantly, consequences for those who forget that our job is to serve passengers, not judge them." Jennifer Walsh was taking notes frantically while maintaining damage control communications with headquarters. "Ms. Rodriguez, can we discuss specific policy implementations? We'll discuss them tomorrow, in the boardroom, with full transparency and media coverage." Maya's tone made it clear this wasn't a request. Sophie's live stream was now being broadcast on major news networks as the story broke nationally. "Wait, you guys. CNN just picked up my stream. We're literally watching history happen. This woman just turned discrimination into revolution." The viral explosion continued across platforms. On Twitter, Sky Premium Shame reached 2.8 million mentions. TikTok featured the incident on their main discovery page. Instagram's algorithm promoted related content to millions of users. LinkedIn exploded with business professionals sharing their own discrimination experiences and calling for industry-wide change. Celebrity responses poured in. Oprah tweeted, "This is why representation in boardrooms matters." At Maya Rodriguez Tech just showed us how to turn injustice into institutional change. Sky Premium Shame John Legend. Watched this incredible woman handle discrimination with grace, intelligence, and power. This is what accountability looks like in 2024. Kerry Washington. From the VIP lounge to the boardroom at Maya Rodriguez Tech just gave us a masterclass in dignity under pressure. Isabella Honey, you played yourself. The business world responded equally swiftly. Other airline CEOs issued statements reinforcing their commitment to inclusive service. Hotel chains, rental car companies, and luxury brands scrambled to review their own policies and training programs. The incident had become a case study in how quickly discrimination could destroy a brand in the social media age. Within 2 hours of Maya's badge reveal, Sky Premium's board had called an emergency meeting. Legal departments across the industry were updating anti-discrimination policies. Business schools were already planning case studies around the incident. Isabella's personal social media accounts were being flooded with responses ranging from outrage to death threats. Her LinkedIn profile showed her as former lounge manager, as word of her termination spread through corporate networks. Videos of her interaction with Maya were being analyzed on YouTube by content creators, legal experts, and diversity consultants. Carlos, meanwhile, found himself unexpectedly famous. Carlos Issei. Hero was trending separately from the main hashtag. His decision to stand up for what was right had resonated across social media, with users praising his moral courage and suggesting he deserved promotion. Sky Premium's HR department was already fielding requests for Carlos interviews from news outlets and business publications. By evening, Maya's revelation had sparked conversations about representation, accountability, and justice in corporate America. The incident transcended aviation, becoming a symbol of how hidden power could emerge to challenge visible prejudice. The Department of Transportation announced they were opening an investigation into airline discrimination practices, the NAACP issued a statement commending Maya's handling of the situation while calling for industry-wide reform. The Congressional Black Caucus scheduled hearings on discrimination in transportation. Maya had achieved something remarkable. She'd turned a moment of personal discrimination into a catalyst for widespread institutional change. The viral documentation had created accountability that traditional complaint processes couldn't provide. The real-time nature of social media had made corporate spin impossible. As the business day ended, Sky Premium's stock had stabilized slightly, but only after the company announced comprehensive policy reviews and Maya's appointment to head a new diversity and inclusion initiative. Competitor airlines saw their stocks rise as passengers expressed willingness to switch carriers. The incident had demonstrated something powerful in the age of social media discrimination couldn't hide behind closed doors or corporate policies. When every passenger carried a broadcasting device and every moment could go viral, companies faced a new reality where their true values would be judged by their worst employee on their worst day. Maya had weaponized that reality, turning documentation into justice and visibility into accountability. She hadn't just won a personal victory, she'd changed the rules of the game for everyone. The revolution would be televised, streamed, tweeted, and shared. And it had a name: Sky Premium Shame. Isabella Whitmore had tried to keep one woman out of a lounge. Instead, she'd opened the floodgates for a conversation about dignity, respect, and power that would reshape an entire industry. The only question was whether the change would last long enough to matter. 6 months after the incident that broke the internet and nearly broke Sky Premium Airlines, Maya Rodriguez sat in her corporate office reviewing quarterly reports that told a remarkable story. Customer satisfaction was at an all-time high. Discrimination complaints had dropped by 87%. Employee retention in customer service roles had improved dramatically. The stock price had not only recovered, but reached new heights as investors recognized that inclusive practices weren't just morally right, they were profitable. But the numbers only told part of the story. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "She's here. Conference room B. Are you sure about this?" Maya looked out her window at the Miami skyline where planes traced silver lines across the blue sky. Some stories ended with justice. Others ended with revenge. Maya had chosen a third path: redemption. "Send her in," Maya typed back. The woman who walked into Maya's office bore little resemblance to the imperious gatekeeper who'd tried to bar entry to the VIP lounge. Isabella Whitmore's perfectly coiffed hair had been replaced by a simple ponytail. The designer suit was gone, traded for a modest dress from Target. The makeup that once required an hour of application was minimal natural. The arrogance that had once radiating from her posture had been replaced by something else entirely: humility. Isabella had learned what it meant to be invisible, to be dismissed, to be judged by appearance rather than character. After her termination from Sky Premium, no airline would hire her. No hotel chain would consider her application. The viral video had followed her to every interview, every networking event, every attempt to rebuild her career in hospitality. For 6 months, she'd worked at a customer service training company, processing complaints and learning about bias from the receiving end. The job paid a fraction of her former salary and carried no prestige, but it had taught her something invaluable: empathy. Ms. Rodriguez, Isabella said, her voice quiet and uncertain. "Thank you for seeing me. I know you didn't have to." Maya gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Please sit. How are you?" Isabella. Isabella sat carefully as if she wasn't sure she deserved the courtesy. "I'm learning. Every day. About myself, about what I did, about why I did it." She looked down at her hands. "I've been working with Dr. Patricia Williams at the Bias Education Institute. She suggested I reach out to you." Maya nodded. Dr. Williams was one of the country's leading experts on unconscious bias training. If Isabella had been working with her, the transformation might be genuine. "What have you learned?" Maya asked. Isabella took a shaky breath. "I learned that I was afraid. Afraid that if I let in people who didn't look like what I thought success should look like, somehow my own position would be threatened. I learned that I used my job to feel powerful because I felt powerless everywhere else. And I learned that when you treat people badly because of how they look, you're not protecting anything. You're just revealing who you really are." The words hung between them. Maya had heard countless apologies from corporate executives, legal teams, and public relations firms. Most were carefully crafted to minimize liability while appearing contrite. Isabella's words carried a different weight, the heaviness of genuine shame. "I know I can't undo what I did," Isabella continued. "I know the video will follow me forever, but Dr. Williams thinks... She thinks maybe my experience could help other people avoid making the same mistakes." Maya leaned back in her chair, studying Isabella's face. The change appeared genuine, but Maya had learned to trust actions over words. "What exactly are you proposing?" Isabella reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "I've spent the last 6 months documenting every bias training program in the hospitality industry. Most of them are terrible. They're check-the-box exercises that make companies feel better without changing behavior. Dr. Williams and I have been developing something different, something that actually works." She opened the folder and spread out materials that showed months of careful research. Training modules, case studies, assessment tools, and implementation strategies that went far beyond typical diversity programs. "We want to create training that shows people their biases in action, helps them understand the impact of their choices, and gives them tools to change. Not because of legal requirements or corporate policies, but because it's the right thing to do." Maya reviewed the materials, impressed despite herself. The work was thorough, thoughtful, and focused on genuine behavior change rather than compliance theater. "And you want to be the face of this program, the poster child for bias recovery." Isabella's laugh held no humor. "I want to be the cautionary tale. I want to tell people what it feels like to watch your career implode because you let fear and prejudice make your decisions. I want them to see what happens when viral justice comes for you. Not to scare them, but to help them understand that change is better than consequences." Maya stood and walked to her window, looking out at the airport in the distance. Planes took off and landed in endless cycles, carrying passengers who deserved dignity regardless of how they looked or where they came from. "There's something I need to tell you, Isabella." The VIP lounge incident. It wasn't the first time someone had been discriminated against by Sky Premium staff. It was just the first time it happened to someone with the power to fight back. How many other passengers did you turn away? How many others did you make feel unwelcome because they didn't meet your personal standards? Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know. Too many. Dr. Williams made me think about that, made me write letters to the ones I could remember. Most of them never responded. I don't blame them." Maya turned back to face her. "Carlos Mendez is now an assistant manager. He leads our new employee advocacy program. Every staff member who witnesses discrimination has support and protection when they speak up. That program exists because a 28-year-old had more courage than his supervisor." "I know," Isabella whispered. "I saw the interview he did with Forbes. He deserved that promotion." Maya walked back to her desk and picked up a contract. "Sky Premium is launching a new customer service training initiative. We need someone who understands bias from both sides. Someone who can teach our staff not just what discrimination looks like, but what it costs. The personal cost, the professional cost, the human cost." Isabella looked up, hope and disbelief warring in her expression. "The position pays modestly," Maya continued. You'd be working directly with our human resources team and customer service training department. You'd travel to our hubs, train our staff, and help develop policies that prevent what happened to me from happening to anyone else. You'd also be working with Dr. Williams to create industry-wide standards that other airlines can adopt. Isabella stared at the contract as if it might disappear. Why, after everything I did, after the way I treated you, why would you give me this chance? Maya sat back down, her expression serious but not unkind. Because revenge is easy. Anyone can destroy someone who wronged them. But transformation, that's hard. That requires believing people can change and being willing to help them change. She slid the contract across the desk. There's one condition. Isabella looked up expectantly. You wear a hoodie to work every single day. Isabella's eyes widened, then filled with understanding. The hoodie symbol of the comfort and casualness she'd once disdained would become her uniform, her daily reminder of the person she'd been and the person she was trying to become. A reminder, Maya explained. For you and for everyone who sees you. That respect isn't about appearance. That dignity isn't about dress codes. That every person who walks into our lounges, boards our planes, or asks for our help deserves to be treated with humanity. Isabella picked up the pen with trembling fingers. Thank you, she whispered. I won't let you down. Don't thank me yet, Maya said, echoing words from another conversation months ago. This is going to be the hardest job you've ever had. You'll face people who remember the video who question whether you deserve a second chance. You'll have to earn respect from colleagues who know your history. And you'll have to look in the mirror every day and choose to be better than you were. Isabella signed her name with careful strokes. I understand. And Ms. Rodriguez, I meant what I said in that letter I sent you. I'm sorry, truly sorry, for everything. Maya nodded. I know. And I believe people can change. The question is whether they want to badly enough. As Isabella left the office wearing her first company hoodie and carrying materials for Monday's training session, Maya reflected on the strange journey that had brought them both to this moment. 6 months ago, Isabella had tried to judge Maya's worth by her appearance. Now she would spend her career teaching others not to make the same mistake. The student had become the teacher. The discriminator had become the advocate, and the viral moment of injustice had become a foundation for lasting change. The transformation wasn't complete. It might never be, but it was real. And sometimes real was enough. Maya Rodriguez had proven that true power didn't need to announce itself. When discrimination tried to silence her voice, she responded not with anger, but with authority. When bias attempted to block her path, she revealed resources that discrimination couldn't imagine. And when the moment came to choose between revenge and redemption, she chose the harder path, the one that actually changes the world. Isabella Whitmore learned that privilege without empathy is just borrowed time. Her story became a cautionary tale that spread far beyond Sky Premium, reminding everyone in positions of power that in our connected world, character is always on display. But more importantly, she discovered that rock bottom could become a foundation for something better if you were willing to do the work. 6 months later, Sky Premium. Shame had evolved into Sky Premium Standard as other airlines adopted Maya's inclusive policies and Isabella's training programs. The viral moment of discrimination had become a blueprint for industry transformation, proving that sometimes the most powerful changes begin with the simple act of standing up and saying no more. From my perspective, as someone who's covered countless stories of injustice and accountability, Maya's approach stands out because she understood something most people miss. Lasting change requires more than viral moments and public shaming. It requires building processes that prevent future harm while helping previous offenders become part of the solution. What strikes me most about this story is how Maya weaponized patience. She could have exploded in anger, could have demanded immediate satisfaction, could have used her power to destroy rather than rebuild. Instead, she chose the longer game, the one that actually fixes problems, instead of just punishing them. That's real leadership. The lesson here isn't just about discrimination in airports or airlines. It's about how we respond when the world reveals its ugliness to us. We can choose the path of destruction which feels good in the moment, but changes nothing fundamental. Or we can choose the path of reconstruction, which is harder but builds something lasting. Maya chose to be an architect rather than a demolition crew, and that choice echoed far beyond one incident in one lounge. If you're facing discrimination yourself, remember Maya's approach. Stay calm, document everything, and use your voice with strategic precision. And if you're in a position like Isabella's, if you've let bias guide your decisions, remember that accountability isn't the end of your story. It can be the beginning of your redemption if you're willing to do the work. What would you have done in Maya's position? Could you have chosen forgiveness over revenge? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story of dignity, justice, and second chances inspired you, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories about real people creating real change. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. Your support helps us bring you more content about justice, accountability, and the power of standing up for what's right. Remember, stay humble, but never let anyone convince you that you don't belong where you've earned the right to be. I'll see you in the next video.